Hello everyone, and welcome to Star Trek Online, The Preservation Project, Episode 1 Tutorial. Those of you who are wondering what in the world is going on here, didn't you already cover this? Well, there are two types of people out there. There are people who want a fast, sort of overview and analyzing version of a video so they can get the basic story out of something. And then there are those who want every nitty-gritty detail there possibly is. Unfortunately, this being a video game instead of, say, a TV series, I cannot give every single detail as if you were playing the game itself, but I can do my best. I am not going to be able to cover things like all the accolades or anything like that, but at least I can cover the story itself. And for those of you who are saying, but Ghost, I can just go play the game right now. There's going to come a time where you can't do that. And the only way you will be able to experience this game is through videos like my own. But to keep things straight, I am only going to deal with one tense. And that tense is right now, December 25th at, midnight. It's Christmas Eve, whatever. Delta Rising is the latest expansion that just came out. Q's Winter Wonderland is in full swing, etc., etc., etc. Finally, I'm going to go cover what format I'm going to have throughout these videos. Essentially, I'm only going to have two sections. The first section is going to cover the story itself, where I just give you a basic rundown of all the major points of the story. Next, I'll go into the When I Was Your Age section, where I basically reminisce about how the mission used to be, like when the game first came out. Now keep in mind that I started playing in Season 1.1, not at the very beginning during beta. So I have no experience from that. So I'll try to keep it as, well, as best as possible when it comes to what I experienced from the game. Anyway, on with the review. So after successfully creating your character, whatever gender or race they may be, you start out the game on good old Starfleet Academy. You are a cadet. On the day of your graduation, you immediately start out meeting your future bridge crew. Elisa Flores, your tactical officer, Travell, your science officer, and a few other people whose name escapes me right now. Terribly sorry about that. You eventually find yourself inside the office of Captain Taggart, the man who is responsible for taking all you cadets out on your first training cruise. He then sends you to the holodeck for some advanced phaser training. He believes that all his senior staff should participate in this exam. After you pass, you quickly learn that he has selected you as his first officer. Your next task is to go to the shuttle bay and, well, give a toast of encouragement to all your fellow crew members before finally leaving for your cleverly named ship. I ended up calling mine the USS Expendable. Why? Because I am not going to be using the ship outside the tutorial. I, in fact, set up a, quote, free agent from another empire that gave me a better ship with much better weapons, which you will see, in the next episode. Not too long into your training cruise, you are hailed by the SS Break Even, captained by who else? A Ferengi. You all know where this is going. You respond to the distress signal like good Starfleet officers, I mean, who wouldn't? And as soon as you drop shields, you are immediately ambushed by a Klingon Negvar battlecruiser, who proceeds to send over a boarding party. The Ferengi, in his usual fashion, pretty much says, I was set up. If I didn't say anything, they were gonna blow up my ship, and then I would lose all my profits. As I said before, typical Ferengi. So you're running around the USS insert ship name here, beating back the boarding parties that have just come on board the ship, eventually making it all the way back to the bridge of your ship, just to see Captain Taggart be beamed away and for you to kill all the Klingons who have infiltrated the bridge. More Klingons for the slaughter. In typical Klingon fashion, Captain Kadok of the IKS Chog hails you. You are ordered to surrender your vessel, he says. Well, you, as a cadet, having duty and honor still ringing in your head, scream, "Never!" Captain Kadok responding feverishly, "Well, if you won't, maybe your captain will order you to surrender." Captain Taggart, on the other hand, orders you to lock on his comm badge and fire. After all, the Klingon ship is cloaked in usual fashion. After taking the captain's chair, you and your crew fight off the IKS Chog and his minions, them being birds of prey. When your communications officer discovers a series of devices that are jamming your transmissions, you immediately find them and blow them to smithereens, and send out a distress signal, which is immediately responded to by Captain Vlok in the USS Renown. Now, before I go on, I must say something right here. With the exception of Spock, I hate Vulcans, mostly because of how they perceive themselves as somewhat superior with their precious logic. This is where I imagine Caitians, the species I am playing as, to be the exact opposite. Extremely passionate in everything they do, using emotion and instinct to govern every aspect of their personalities. So naturally, I am going to hate Volok here. In the usual Vulcan mannerism, he pretty much states, "Logic suggests that you are only cadets. You should go back to Earth's space dock while we fight off the Klingons." Luckily, though, the IKS Chog decloaks right next to the USS Renown, and you are able to get revenge, sweet revenge, for your captain. Poor Captain Taggart. After swiftly defeating the IKS Chog, you are instead ordered to follow the USS Renown to the Pollux system. One good thing that comes out of this is Captain Volok gives you a field promotion to lieutenant so that you can captain and govern all the cadets that are on board your ship. Why are you asked to go to the Pollux system, you ask? It's rather simple, really. The Renown was supposed to report back to the USS Kittimer, but for some reason their communications officer was unable to raise them. So both ships end up going to the Pollux system to investigate why they are unable to raise the USS Kittimer. This is where things start to get a little bit more intense. The USS Kittimer was investigating some anomalies just outside the Pollux system. Terribly sorry if I keep mispronouncing it. After scanning the anomalies, you find out that it's the prelude to a Borg invasion. Suddenly, Borg ships start warping in everywhere, but as fast as they come, they leave, only leaving behind about one or two ships which you proceed to blow up. I mean, nobody likes the Borg after all. After destroying the initial Borg ships, you find out that they also sent a boarding party on board the USS Kittimer. This is actually a reference to the original tutorial, which I will cover later. You speak with the EMH, who is apparently in charge of the ship at the time, only for a short while, and then another wave of Borg ships start attacking you. Again, you quickly fight them off and find out where the Borg are actually heading, at least their main forces. They're going to Vega Colony. You are ordered by Captain Volok, the Vulcan, to the Vega Colony to warn all the colonists of the impending invasion, possibly even to evacuate the colonists. There you are confronted by a few more Borg ships, which have entered orbit and are trying to land on the planet's surface, as well as contact the mayor of the colony, and are for once successful in warning the colony of the invasion. You and Elisa Flores quickly beam down to the surface so that you can help with the evacuation. There you find that the Borg have already assimilated most of the entire colony. But then again, who saw that coming? After finally meeting the mayor, she decides that the colony is doomed, but doesn't leave without giving you a present, a kit. I'll explain that sort of stuff later sometime. You then set up some transport enhancers to beam out all that's left of the colonists successfully, while you fight off a small couple of waves of Borg drones on the ground, only to discover that there's some sort of transport inhibitor making it so it's impossible for you to get off the surface. You quickly follow a small path with one of your new bridge officers, a ground tactical officer named Coles, who had been born in the colony. You fight through the remaining Borg in the area, Coles making a rather sad remark about one of the people you had just killed.
I knew that one. We played poker last night.
They had played poker together last night. So sad about the Borg. Where you find the transport inhibitor, completely obliterate it, and meet an assimilated Jem'Hadar, kill him, and are finally able to beam off the planet's surface. While trying to leave orbit, your bridge officers decide to set up a series of warning beacons, and you agree to it. I mean, who wouldn't? The Borg have just assimilated an entire planet within the Alpha Quadrant. As you move between the three satellites, you encounter increasingly difficult Borg ships, leading up to a Borg cube. Thinking all is lost, your entire crew prepares for the end, just to have Starfleet show up in the nick of time, including the Defiant herself, to completely obliterate that Borg cube, and winning the day. In the end, you are all sent back to where you were ordered to go in the first place, Earth Space Dock. There you meet Admiral Quinn himself, the man who will be giving you your next series of assignments, and fully promotes you to Lieutenant, ending the very first mission within the game. This leads to the "when I was your age" section of the video. Now keep in mind, I started playing during Season 1.1, when the Klingons just started to receive some story content instead of doing PvP all the time. So I didn't get to experience any of the funny glitches like, say, being able to run around as a starship on Earth's space dock. Yes, that was seriously a thing. If you noticed at one point in the tutorial, there was a Borg boarding party on board the USS Kittimer. In the original tutorial, you were a lowly ensign, not even part of the bridge crew of the USS insert ship name here, who responded to the distress signal of the USS Kittimer. While you were over there, you fought off a whole bunch of Borg, but didn't defeat all of the boarding party, and ended up back on your ship, only to discover that pretty much all the bridge crew and a whole bunch of other senior staff that were on board the ship, all the way up to, or should I say down to, ensign, have all been killed off by another Borg boarding party that boarded your ship. Now, if you ask me, this was a bit of a stretch for the game at the time, but they didn't really know how to make it so that you would be the captain of your own ship. Making it so you were part of the senior staff of a crew full of cadets was a much easier and more believable way of giving you the exact same thing. Also in the tutorial, you ended up going to Vega Colony as usual, saving some colonists as much as you could, going and finding the transport inhibitor and destroying it, all that same stuff. But throughout the entire tutorial, minus the EMH that you met as soon as you got on board the USS Kittimer, there was no voice acting whatsoever. Which is kind of a nice touch, if you ask me. The only other thing that I can say that was almost completely the same was Admiral Quinn. As usual, after you finished with Vega Colony, you got on board your ship, helped out a little bit in whatever way, then you went back to Earth Space Dock, which was completely different back then. I mean, you should have saw the layout. It didn't even look like a Federation starbase. You met Admiral Quinn, he promoted you to Ensign, or was it Lieutenant still? I'm not entirely sure. And that was the end of the old tutorial. It was a lot shorter, and you didn't learn as much from the game. But that's pretty much everything that I have to ramble on. See you on the next episode.